Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the library. It's good to see audience members here. This fall, we're doing a number of events. One is a series on pop culture and pop culture conversations. So something we thought that would be fun is to pull some of our students into this conversation. So we are very happy to be joined by members of the Anime Club to talk about manga. We in the library have a growing, awesome, amazing manga collection that we want people to know about and to get used. So we've invited some folks to come in and talk about it. I'll just introduce Donald Allen, who's the coordinator, the supervisor, what's the term? The advisor.
Oh, yeah, advisor, yeah.
Advisor for the club. He's gonna moderate for us, so thank you for that, and I'll let him introduce our panel. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you to our audience.
Thank you very much, Troy. Hello, everyone. As Troy was saying, my name is Donald Allen. I'm also a faculty member, not faculty, but I work here at Moraine Valley Community College with the dual credit department, also the advisor for the Anime Club, and I will let our panelists introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Simon Kulik. I'm part of the Anime Club, and I came here to speak about manga, anime, and the culture around it.
My name is Aaron. I've been a part of the Anime Club for a little over 2 years now. One of the reasons why I wanted to speak in this panel is because anime and manga are just something that are very close and personal to me, and I want to be able to kind of reach out to newer people, or especially to people who want to get into it. And really the best way to do that is by just talking about it and explaining our experiences.
Excellent. So just from a show of hands, how many people are familiar with manga? Okay, a good amount. Yeah, and then also, are you pretty familiar with just American comics, like graphic novels too? Excellent. So yeah, just for anybody that doesn't know, manga is comic books and graphic novels, just where it originated in Japan. And today's panel is gonna be a panel that's good for just as an introduction to anyone who wants to learn more about manga or who just wants to celebrate it and discover some new titles. But yeah, so this is good for all audiences. But yeah, we'll jump into our first question. So I'll give this one to you, Aaron. So for those unfamiliar with manga, how would you describe its cultural significance and how it stands apart from other comics or graphic novels?
Okay, so one of the things that would separate manga or anime as well from like comic books here that you see here in the West, or even like graphic novels here in the West, it's simply, I think it's easier, I think, to follow along with the story in some cases, and especially too, you grow more attached with the characters. Because like, whenever I read like a Marvel comic or a DC comic, I like the story that I hear, but there's something missing about like me trying to relate to the characters or follow along with the characters. Whereas in a manga or an anime, I have like many instances where I can say, oh wow, I went through that experience myself, or oh wow, I went through a similar experience to this character. And really, it's just, that's all kind of like a preference thing. Manga especially, it kind of motivates you whenever, or like anime and manga kind of motivated me to kind of pursue my passions. Whereas like whenever I watch a Marvel movie, I'm just kind of like, oh, that's cool. And then as time goes on, you know, you don't learn as much as you do when you read a comic book as you would from something like a manga. Like whenever I read a manga, afterwards, I always like learn something new. I learned something new about like life, or I learned something new about just like certain aspects of life as a whole. And really, there's just, I think more about the people of this world, especially after reading a manga, as opposed to just kind of thinking about myself, if that makes sense.
I started really watching anime 2017, Technically, I started watching it in the early 2000s with Dragon Ball Z where I could find it, but I never knew I never really knew what anime was back then because I was what, like 2 when I realized when I was watching Dragon Ball Z, wherever I may have watched it at the time. But yeah, 2017 was when I was introduced to the idea that anime itself is a new thing that is is interesting, and I started watching anime like My Hero Academia and Darling in the Franxx back when that anime was popular, because uh, those were the anime that intrigued me at the time. And yeah, I'm still watching My Hero Academia as of right now, as it is completing.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, guys. For the next question, manga covers such a wide variety of genres, from action and romance to fantasy and horror. Could you each talk about your favorite genre? Sometimes manga is classified by audience. Many titles are written with a group of readers in mind. Does this hinder or help you as a reader?
So to answer the first part of the question, my favorite genres, one would obviously be shonen, which I think that's a fan favorite amongst many. One of my other favorite genres, though, is slice of life. And for those that don't know what slice of life is kind of follows like a more realistic story compared to like what you'd see from like an action series or really just anything that's like not science fiction, if that makes sense. One of the reasons why I like slice of life is because you always are attached to the stories, and especially too, slice of life can take like another genre and make it even more interesting than it already is. Like, for example, I'm not the biggest romance guy. Romance is just not my cup of tea, but there are a lot of slice of life anime that has like heavy romance aspects, and most of the time I'm always attached with the story. One example is this series called Harimia, and it's a story about a kind of more of a shut-in person, what's the word I'm looking for? The people who, there's like people who are very outside and outgoing, and then
Introverted. Yeah.
introvert and extrovert. Yeah, it's the main female protagonist is an extrovert, and the male protagonist is an introvert, and the two of them meet each other outside of school. They kind of don't recognize each other at first, but as they learn about each other, they realize they share more in common with each other than they expected, and the two of them kind of help each other through the difficult times that they're going through, and especially whenever one of them is in trouble, the other one's there always to be like the rock to lean on. And the second part of the question was that, what was the second part, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so sometimes manga is classified by the audience, and many titles are written with a group of readers in mind. Does this ever hinder or help you as a reader?
I would say if anything, it helps because there's something out there for everyone. Like again, even if you're not into anime or you don't even read manga, there is something out there for you that might even pique your interest. Like really, that's what got me into anime and manga is simply just the fact that I was able to find series that piqued my interest, or based on like movies or TV shows I'd watched previously, I was able to kind of be like, oh, that reminds me of this show, or that reminds me of this movie. Or, oh my gosh, I saw this when I was like 4 years old and now it's still ongoing. That was even before like I knew what anime was. You think to yourself, you're just like, whoa, there's more than one animation studio in America? So really it's just about the overall experience that I have with anime and manga. It helps with all the different genres out there, and you just really can expand your horizons more in that case.
So I guess we could talk about the different types of the the division of shonen and shoujo. So manga like Dragon Ball Z or Bleach, for instance, they're considered shoujo, and their audience is for their audience is made for boys, while fruits fruits ba- while shoujo like Fruits Basket are there's an audience they're intended for a more young girl audience, which is a element that um, that is pretty evident with throughout all manga and anime, F- especially with My Hero Academia and even One Piece and Naruto. The audience intended um, was is very evident in what the story of the manga is. I don't think that hinders my enjoyment. I believe that the authors themselves can tell the stories very well. Like Oda with One Piece, he is able to even he's able to tell a good story. Even yeah, and I'm very sorry for being very shaky.
Oh, no, you're doing great.
But yes, there's also genres like slice of life and many fantasy genres. A very popular subgenre of fantasy, especially the manga, would be isekai, which is the idea of reincarnating into another world, starting from scratch. Either you die in the other world, you don't die. It's one of those things. It's very popular because most of the time the main characters are written in a way so that you so that the reader can really get invested because the they the writers know that um, the writers know that their main audience is going to be people that are more shy to the world, so they write main characters that are very easily relatable and can do things that they themselves wish they could.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, guys. I like what you said right quick, Aaron, about just how slice of life can connect to just different aspects of everyday life, because you can always pull lessons from that. And what you were saying, Simon, about with shonen and shoujo, that can help with somebody's development. You know, it helps them relate if they're introverted. It helps them relate to the character and just see that they have greatness in them. Yeah, so next question. Can each of you share your first experience with manga and what was the first series you read and what drew you into manga?
So my experience with manga, I first started with anime, like probably a lot of people do. There are some people I know who probably start with manga, then go to anime, but my experience was the opposite. Um, Anime was something I didn't watch a lot growing up, except for like, the typical series like Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that stuff. Like the stuff you typically get here in the West that are like on more like the standard networks. But as time went on and after high school, I decided to pick up anime and just started watching it. And I it's weird because when I first started watching it, I just couldn't really grow attached to it like the same way other people do because I was watching seasonal series, which is how a lot of people typically start. Um, so I decided to just like look up like what were the most popular series. So then I watched the Fate series was one of the first ones I watched, and then I watched one of the next series I watched was Code Geass, which is still to this day my favorite series of all time. Then after I started watching more anime, I started picking up on other manga series too. So One Piece was obviously a big one. There's also One Punch Man. There's also Death Note. There's a lot of great series, and in my personal opinion, it just kind of started through, I guess, kind of luck, because I started just simply through watching clips online or like hearing my friends talk about it, and then I just decided I'm like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And over time, I just kind of grew to love anime and manga, and especially too, I loved even before that, I loved cosplaying, which um, cosplaying was something I've been doing ever since I was like 13. So, and then when I saw like more characters, I wanted to be like, I really want to cosplay as these characters, so I should probably start following more series and kind of understand their personality and their traits and everything like that.
Similar to Aaron, I started with anime, obviously from how I've been telling things. I started with anime. During my senior year of high school, I took a graphic novels course, which um, showed me all all the elements of graphic novels in the West, as well as the graphic novels in the East, like manga. And one of the first first manga that I pulled up from the library because if I've already watched the anime, I'm not really going to want to read the manga for it. But the first manga that I think I read was either a Junji Ito graphic novel, or it was also Vinland Saga as well, because I heard that very good things from that, and I believe and I was very impressed with what was shown from the initial from the initial arc of the story to how it transitioned to a more less action-packed story, which it I would describe it as a masterpiece because of how well written it was. I've not watched the anime for it, but I've seen a few clips of it, and I it's by Wit Studios, so I would assume that it's very good. Would would any of you have you watched Vinland Saga? Yeah. Um, so yeah, I tend I've also read Berserk later on. Like I read the whole all 41 volumes, which ooh, yeah, this is one volume of Berserk. There's 41 of these, fully complete. Yeah, a thousand pages each. Yeah. It took me like 6 months to a year. I it similarly it took me like a year and a half to catch up with One Piece because of the how many episodes there are. At the time I was watching it, I was still in the Wano arc. Yeah, which at that point was like reaching the 1000th episode, which yeah, now it's at 1100 episodes. So yeah, it's those anime take a lot of dedication to continuously watch.
If you think getting caught up with One Piece was a challenge, wait till you meet the next boss.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. Yeah, Berserk, that looks like Encyclopedia Britannica almost, if that's just one volume.
Yeah, that's
That is very true.
Excellent.
No, it isn't.
Oh yeah, right quick before we forget, Aaron, which character are you cosplaying again from the manga that you mentioned?
So I'm cosplaying as a character named Aqua, or Aquamarine is his full name. It's from the series called Oshinoko. The anime just wrapped up its second season, and a third season's now officially been announced. Really, this anime, the best way I can explain it is it exposes the entertainment industry in both the East and the West, and especially too, you kind of learn the dark truths that you hear about. Because growing up as a kid, you don't understand how the entertainment industry works, but as you get older, when we hear about like more of these actors and actresses telling their experiences, what made them kind of make some of the really like odd decisions or really bad decisions that kind of changed their life for worse, it's basically that in this series, and especially too,
There's
it
also,
just tells like such a compelling story. Sorry.
there's also supernatural elements in the
Yeah.
story as well. That, mainly because it is a reincarnation like story, but it's not. I wouldn't really categorize it as an isekai because you don't really get transported into another world. I I think I think it was mentioned in the synopsis that the big premise, which the premise of this series can be a little cringe, if you will. Ba- the premise is you get reincarnated into in, as a child of the idol that you really liked, which yeah, the premise isn't very good, but the execution is like master class filmography, which yeah, and for reference, the first episode of for the first season is an hour, 82 minutes, which you know that to compare that, ReZero's season 3 only just got to having an episode that long for like 90 minutes, which is also another anime that has reincarnation elements. And yeah, they the first episode is for the first season would be a prologue for Oshinoko to really get you into it because, as I mentioned, the premise is I would say would probably dissuade a lot of people. I tried to get someone to watch the anime, and they stopped me within 6 minutes of the episode because they did they re, the Japanese culture has a lot of different elements that Americans or even a more Western audience might not be able to handle or tolerate.
Yeah. That's good.
But but so if you're ever interested in watching the anime or reading it, it's on High Dive, which is also another barrier of entry. But yeah, it's it's one of those ones where similar to how Berserk's first panels in the first volume, it can get pretty intense. That, but yeah,
That's a pretty good segue into the next question with different audiences. So, if someone in the audience is new to manga, which series would you recommend they start with and why? And as a follow up, are there any particular titles that you think are especially accessible for newcomers?
So really, some people can just kind of find one series that piques their interest, just kind of based on the title alone. But if there is anyone that's kind of struggling to find a title, I actually have two. One of the ones I'd recommend is this series called One Punch Man, which I did bring this up previously. What I love about One Punch Man is that it has a little bit of everything. So it's got action, it's got comedy, it's got a little bit of supernatural and philosophical to it. The reason why I like that series in terms of like recommending it for starters is because especially the premise itself, if you're a big fan of like superhero movies or if you're a big fan of just like comic books overall, this is as close as you're gonna get for like a good starter series, especially too because the main character, um, there's kind of more uh, like kind of more loopholes to his plot as opposed to especially he's kind of a serious protagonist, but at the same time not too serious to the point where he's like so deep and philosophical. When you learn about like his history and stuff, you're like that. You're just like, oh, so that's how he got that way. So it's nothing too crazy, but at the same time, it's one of my favorite starter series for a lot of people. And I mean, if you definitely want a series that's pretty easy to follow, I would say One Punch Man is definitely the way to go.
I could. I I don't know where to begin with what manga or anime I'd recommend because there, as the audience can see, there's a lot of manga here. I could recommend Full Metal Alchemist. It was on my anime list as the #1 anime for like a decade, which has its own controversy, but um, yeah, which recently got superseded by Soso no Frieren or Frieren Beyond Journey's End, which is um, also it is by the studio Madhouse that made Death Note, um, or animated Death Note, and it is a actual classical fantasy type, with not which no there's no reincarnation stuff like that. The main character is a elf, yes, what, and it explores the topics of what it would be like to live as an immortal 1,000-year-old elf, as because as in lots of isekai you always have that one tropey elf character. So they decided, let's have let's have this group of adventurers, and let's start the story at the very end of their adventure, as the title says. So a lot of these characters, so a lot of the characters from the initial group would then die because by the time the adventure is up, they're going to grow old, and the elf only comes back to visit them 50 years down the line, because 50 years to someone that's lived 1,000 is like a small dash in their life.
It's also good that you brought that series up too, because the main character that you brought up that was an elf, she doesn't really understand human emotions, nor does she fully understand like why humans behave the way they do or how they react the way they do. And she is with a group of adventurers who are kind of trying to show her why they kind of act the way they do, and especially too, really it also teaches you like it's okay to feel the way you feel about certain things, even if it's happy, whether it's sad, whether it's angry. Really it has just like elements that you can relate to everyday life despite being such a like such an old series, or such a series that takes place like thousands of years ago.
Yeah, there are many other manga and anime that I would also like to recommend. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. There's many volumes to the manga, and the anime has like 5 seasons now, which it's, yes, six. Yeah. Did you say six? Yeah. Um, and this one, this anime and manga are about characters who have gained abilities called stands, that give them certain powers to do things. And I mentioned sho- this shoujo manga. I think it's very good as a romance one. It's, I think, as good as I've heard as Spice and Wolf. Uh, yeah. There's there, and for people that are interested in more slice of life type of manga, Komi Can't Communicate, which is about a character who effectively mute, and for more of a very casual field, Spy X Family, where there it's a family constructed of a gov a government agent and an assassin and a child that can read people's minds. There's also My Hero Academia, as I previously mentioned, there's also the big three of manga and anime, like One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. But I'd recommend getting into something probably a little smaller, since those could, as I mentioned, it took me like a year and a half to catch up with the One Piece anime. It's now at 1,100 episodes. It'd probably take me 2 years if I had the same amount of time. And there was also Demon Slayer, which got popular over 2020, over the COVID-19 pandemic. And that and the animation studio Ufotable animated Demon Slayer, which they use elements like CGI and 2D animation and merge them in pretty well ways. similarly, I believe, yeah, Ch- Chainsaw Man does similar things like that. Um, and it's a bit iffy if you like CGI in anime because of see how messing with technological animation with hand 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 animation or digital animation by hand, it can get really messy. But I would also recommend, if any of you could afford a Hayao Miyazaki anime, or even the manga that Hayao Miyazaki created, which is a Studio Ghibli production, which is very well known for creating movies that have inspired many childhoods. And Blue Period and is about an art student going through life of trying to get into art school and experiencing what it is like to be in college as an art major. And yeah, there's a lot more manga here. I don't know if I can if there's any more time really
Yeah,
for me to
there's
talk.
infinite amounts of manga, even in the library itself.
Oh, and one more thing to mention, um, solo leveling. Um, in different countries that in Asia, there are different, so to say, ways that comics are done. In South Korea, it is spelled, and China, they're similarly said to be manhwa. In South Korea, it's spelled Manhwa, and in China, Manhua. And this would be one of my recommendations if you wanted to see how South Koreans go about things similar to isekai. It's a regression type story. It's South Korea likes trying to build a character from the ground up. Similarly, um, and for a recommendation for a a Chinese manga or anime, I link click. If any of you heard of that, I would recommend it. The story is about two characters being able to analyze the past of other people's lives and solve the things that have troubled them. So yeah, it. I just wanted to mention that different countries have different ways to go about making comics.
Yeah,
So yeah.
which is perfect for the next question
Oh, there is.
because with different countries, like you mentioned, differences, for someone who might feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of manga out there, what advice would you give to help them find a series that suits their taste and avoid decision paralysis?
Really, it's all about taking your time and working at your own pace. That's one of the best advice because there's no rush to get into stuff like this. A lot of people think, oh, I got to get into this immediately because of how cool it sounds. But really, I was like that at first, but I realized as I really took my time and I tried to do like before when I started watching more religiously, watching and reading anime and manga, I kind of tried to do something a little bit every day. So I'd watch an episode of anime, or I think the most I've watched in like a day is like 10 or 12 episodes, believe it or not. And then I would try to get through like 1 or 2 volumes of manga if I wasn't in the mood to watch an anime. But really, it's just there's no hurry into stuff like this. And really, if you hurry yourself into it, it's not going to be the same experience as if you really take the time and watch something. Like whenever you want to watch a movie, you really want to take the time to uh, watch the movie in terms of just like you want to understand the characters, you want to understand the plot, you want to follow along with the story and kind of look back on scenes that happened previously and think to yourself, oh, so this scene connects to that one, or this kind of connects to that. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people kind of miss whenever they get into anime or manga when they first start. Again, it's just take your time, don't rush into anything. That's the best advice I can really give. And really just enjoy every second you can. Even if it's not your favorite series, there's probably something that you're going to enjoy about the series, regardless of whether you love it or not.
Similar to what you were saying, I wouldn't rush into any series, any manga or anime series that are very long because you might miss out on other anime or manga that are coming out and that might be interesting, which I you you I may initially I may have started out with My Hero Academia or certain anime like that because I didn't really know much else that was in the anime scene at the time. But the longer I got into watching anime, I started finding things that I liked watching, like um, Doctor Stone as well, or any of the other anime and manga that I have mentioned. Because if you get, I'm not here to I'm not here to say that you can't get into one manga series completely, but there are a lot of assortment of options out there that might be interesting for to to broaden your horizons with.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. So I know throughout just the whole conversation, you guys were mentioning how anime was the starting point. Well, with the next question, with many people get into anime first before they dive into manga, but how do you think anime influences new readers to explore manga? And then, are there any specific anime adaptations that might encourage someone to pick up the manga version?
So that's actually a great question. One of the things that's nice about manga that separates it from anime is most of the time manga is going to be the original source material. And it's the same way how like a lot of movies are based on novels. And you're going to hear a lot of people say that the novel is superior to the movie. Most of the time that's the case with a lot of different anime. Like we were mentioning One Piece. The anime is amazing, but if you compare it to the manga, it's night and day simply because the manga has slightly better pacing. There's not as many like filler arcs, which is just kind of an uncanon or unnecessary story.
Yeah, Bleach has had a lot of that in its first adaptation to the point where it had to take a 14-year hiatus because of how of what transpired with how many filler seasons there were
Yeah.
effectively, which killed anyone from wanting to watch the anime and effectively drove people to just read the manga, which I believe the Bleach manga is already complete, but the anime there's another adaptation coming out that is trying to adapt Bleach a lot better, knowing now that it's probably also complete, and also they realize what happens when you have too many filler episodes. Never mind seasons.
It's also good too that you brought that up because one thing that manga also touches on is there are some missing things in anime that are shown in the manga that aren't shown in the actual like series. So there are certain aspects of Naruto.
Naruto, yeah. In Naruto Shippuden, I believe there. I don't know. Do you like spoiling things to audiences?
Probably, probably not the best idea, just
Yeah.
in case there are people. But really, the
there-
best thing is
Yeah, there's one scene that is, I could say from the Naruto that happens in the Naruto Shippuden series that is completely anime only, but is done very, very well. I won't say much else, but there's a specific scene that is very intense between a father and son character. Well, I'll say that much.
there's also too like in manga too. You don't see as much. Like there's more like graphic stuff in a manga than there is in an anime, which Depending on your taste, that could be better, that could be worse, depending on how you view it. Some people like stuff that's less violent, and then there are other people who like stuff that's way more violent. Really, that's just one thing, especially too, if someone tells you like there's a scene that's different from the manga than it is from the anime you watched, like there are a lot of different scenes from One Piece that are in the manga that aren't in the anime, and it's really just really it's all down to preference on which one you prefer, but a lot of people I know for a fact would probably tell you there are aspects of the manga that are far superior to the anime.
I wanted to also say one thing about One Piece. It is getting a new anime adaptation. It also had a live action adaptation that did very well, but there's a new anime adaptation that is being done by Wit Studio that aims to be more faithful and better paced than uh, Toei's adaptation, since Toei tends to adapt things to drag them out a lot more. Just like with Dragon Ball Z or even Dragon Ball Super, they tend to pace things out a lot slower, to drag things out to match to be able to handle the manga's pacing at the time.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, guys. I know that.
And
Oh, yeah.
I Oshinoko, I would recommend watching the anime first, because the whole premise of this is the entertainment industry, and a lot of moving parts happen, to which I would say animation probably does it a lot more justice than a manga can, because there's motion involved in theater, which cannot fully be um, fully be explored in a manga format. And one manga that I would say is better done than the anime would be Tokyo Ghoul, which I've seen a few scenes where they have to tone down the gore in it, and Tokyo Ghoul is one of the good examples where the manga author did a lot better of a job than the animation studio. It's probably due to a lot of interests as well, which is similar to what happened to the Berserk anime adaptations over the years, where there's only one good anime adaptation in the 90s, and since then you got you got just CGI adaptations, which yeah, just pure CGI. I would not recommend watching the anime adaptations. Yeah.
I mean, the 90s one was good, but the 2016 was...
but the 2016. And also, they're still sticking to that anime studio, I believe, or something like that. I can't say it's as terribly paced, but the CGI is very jarring.
I've always said there's only one anime series that I think did CGI and animation so well, and that's 86. Literally everything else I've seen is like, you know, it's completely like, it looks completely different, but then whenever I look at like 86, I'm just like, okay, this looks amazing. I'm glad they went to CGI, because in animation form it wouldn't have looked as good.
Have you seen Beastars?
No, but I've seen bits and pieces.
Oh, okay.
That one looks decent though, I will say.
Yeah, lots of series overall, but that's definitely good, just being able to give everyone listening an incentive to be able to see when to look at the anime versus the manga. They offer different things, whether it's the plot, something filler or not. But yeah, I would say for our very last question, you guys can just spend about 2-3 minutes on this one. So do you think being a part of a community enhances your experience with manga? And has manga connected you with others who enjoy it?
100% absolutely. I really can't explain how much anime and manga has kind of changed my life for the better, because really it's kind of motivated me more to pursue a lot of things in my life. Like, not gonna go into like a whole story here, but All I'm gonna say is a few years ago, my life was not really at the best point. I was kind of one of the lowest points I think I've ever been. I'm not gonna go into details, but really, whenever I watched an anime or manga and I like was done with like the episode or done with the series, it kind of made me think to myself, I can do more with my life. I'm just choosing not to right now. So there were times where I wasn't happy with my job, so I went out and got a new job that made me much more happy, especially. And then there were times where I wanted to like hang out more with friends and I wanted to get to meet new people. And that's especially too, believe it or not, anime or manga actually motivated me to go to the gym more, which that's something I don't think a lot of TV shows or series can do. I mean, obviously, unless it's like a
Sports anime like Blue Lock or Haikyuu.
yeah, and I mean, especially too, I went to my first ever anime convention earlier this year, and it was easily the greatest experience of my life because I met so many amazing people. I met some of my friends that I'm currently friends with now there, and especially too, there's just it's so welcoming, and especially it's one of those places where you can really express your interest without being judged, if that makes sense. Which, me, if people judge me for liking anime, I really don't care. Because I always say, as long as you're not hurting anyone, or as long as you enjoy it, there's nothing wrong with it. And especially, too, I used to care a lot about what people thought about me. And then over time, as I've gotten older, and especially, too, as I've grown to watch anime and grown to watch, or read manga, rather, it's just you learn what's the valuable things in life are, as opposed to like the moments where you should really just care about it for like 2 seconds, as opposed to the moments where even if they're short, those are the moments like that you spend time with family or friends. Those are the moments that matter the most in life. And really, that's one of the things that I think brings anime and manga enthusiasts like myself together with so many different people, because we all can just come together, and just really just get away from the real world and just enjoy our experiences.
Um, so my story with anime and manga in general is that I only started really getting into it, say, around the end of middle school and high school. I I didn't know I didn't know at the time how much my life would change, really. But I know that every manga or anime that I've watched has changed my perspective on life to a degree. Um, there have been a lot of low moments that I've experienced in high school, but manga and anime have brought me through them, and which brought me to a better point in my senior year of high school. And once I got into college, I joined the anime club because I felt that it was it was a place that I could really understand people better. So because felt I felt that my interests in manga or anime could be understood, I went to that club and to make friends there as well, because by the end of high school I only really had one friend, and by right now I think I have a group of friends that I like talking to. So yeah.
That's so awesome. You can literally connect on anything, starts with a show, and that can develop a long-term friendship. So yeah, we do have a few more minutes. We have time for about one question if somebody does have a question from the audience.
Does anyone have a question that they want to ask?
And a question.
Spider-Man 3 is the worst movie, but it's based on the best Spider-Man story.
Mm.
So I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, you talked about like those 41 volumes. I just moved recently to States. I had to move a lot of comic books. Do you buy all of those, or do you use Nook, or do you get them from interlibrary loan? Like, Annie, and do you use DVDs, or do you watch Crunchyroll? Like, how do you manage it? 'Cause it seems like a big.
I will say that I read a lot of my manga at the library because I just don't have the money to wa- watch or read manga. Yeah. So I tend to just get all my reading done in the library now. Yeah.
Really, there's websites out there where you can actually read like manga digitally. Some of them do cost money, and then of course there are people who will pirate it, which obviously not recommended. But at the same time, it's even though it could be somewhat of an expensive hobby, I always look at as long as you can find like even just a few series that'll make you happy, and like you really take your time and have patience, then you can really get into the habit of starting to collect like more as you go on. And especially too, if you have any friends potentially that have like a manga or anime, feel free to ask them. Ask if they would allow you to borrow it. Like sometimes I know there are people who are very cautious about who they lend out their material to, but I mean, if you have any friends like that, that's your go-to option.
Awesome.
Any more questions from the audience? Uh, can people join anytime at the anime club?
Yes, that's a good question. So the Anime Club is every Friday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. in the U building, U209. And we usually watch a selection of new shows each week, and sometimes we'll do different events and activities. So yeah, there's no specific prerequisite to join. You can just show up one day and then hang out with some cool people. Pretty hang loose environment. So
If it's a good day, you'll probably see me around walking on campus in cosplay, passing out flyers. So if you're ever here on like a Friday at like around maybe like 12, 1 o'clock, walk around the campus, maybe you'll see me. Maybe you'll see a weirdo walking around campus in a very colorful outfit.
Any last minute questions? Because yeah, we're wrapping things up here.
yeah, I'd say that looks about good. Just everyone give them a hand to our panelists. Great job, Aaron and Simon. Just one last announcement too. If you guys would like to look more into the mangas, the library does have a manga section over here. And also if you're more into the digital, there is an app called Hoopla where you can download that and there's a selection of titles on that. And then if you like this, free access from the library, so that's awesome. And then just last thing, if you like this panel, there are 2 other ones coming up with the pop culture series. I know there's one on Star Wars and Munster, so you can check that out too. But yeah, that's all we got. Thank you for coming out, everyone.
Feel free to look at the books that are up here. You can check them out if you're interested.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you.
This is good. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
That was
Thanks
fun.
so much.
That was fun. I'm glad we're able to do it.
That was my first panel.
Hey, you did a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah.